You think your problem is confidence. It's not. You don't lack confidence, you're leaking it, and it's happening in moments you don't even notice. Every time you over-explain, seek validation, or rush to be understood, you quietly reduce your presence. It feels smart, professional, even necessary, but it sends the wrong signal. And in high-performance environments, perception defines value. Today, you'll uncover where it starts and how to instantly regain control. Most people don't notice when this pattern shows up because it hides inside normal interactions. The moment you feel questioned, misunderstood, or slightly challenged, something automatic kicks in. You start adding more context, more explanation, more detail, trying to make everything sound complete and precise. On the surface, it feels like clarity. It feels like professionalism, but underneath, something subtle begins to shift. The more you add, the more your message starts to feel like it needs support. And when your words don't stand on their own, people don't interpret that as intelligence. They interpret it as uncertainty. Your tone becomes slightly reactive, your pace increases, and your focus shifts from delivering your point to making sure it's accepted. And that's where the real change happens. You're no longer communicating from control, you're adjusting in real time, trying to manage how others perceive you. And that small shift is exactly where confidence begins to leak. What makes this even more subtle is that it has very little to do with what you're saying and everything to do with how it's being delivered. Because in any interaction, people aren't just processing information, they're reading signals. Signals of certainty, control, and self-trust. And one of the strongest signals you send is how much you feel the need to reinforce your own words. When your communication is grounded, there's no urgency behind it. You state your point clearly, directly, and then you stop. That pause carries weight. It shows composure. It signals that you trust what you just said without needing to add layers on top of it. But the moment you continue, adding more explanation, more justification, more reasoning, something shifts beneath the surface. What feels like clarity to you begins to feel like compensation to others. And this is where the leak actually happens, not in the first sentence, but in everything that comes after it. Every extra line subtly communicates that your message might not be strong enough on its own, that it needs reinforcement. And even if that's not your intention, perception doesn't work based on intention, it works based on patterns. People start to sense a slight urgency, a need to be understood, a quiet attempt to secure agreement. Your delivery becomes less about expressing a point and more about making sure it lands perfectly. And that effort, no matter how controlled it seems, is what introduces doubt into the interaction. Because when someone is truly certain, they don't rush to close every gap. They don't try to eliminate every possible misunderstanding in real time. They say what matters, and they allow space. And that space does something powerful. It shifts the dynamic. It moves you from someone who is trying to be validated to someone who naturally holds presence. But when that space disappears, so does part of your authority. The conversation becomes heavier, more crowded, less focused, and instead of your message gaining strength, it starts to lose impact, not because it lacks quality, but because it lacks restraint.
This is where the real cost begins to show. Because confidence leaks don't create immediate consequences, they compound over time. Each small moment of over-explaining, each unnecessary clarification, each attempt to make everything sound perfectly clear slowly shapes how people position you in their mind. Not based on your knowledge, your experience, or your capability, but based on how stable you appear when you communicate. When your message feels like it needs reinforcement, people start interacting with it differently. They don't just listen, they evaluate. They don't just receive, they look for gaps. And the more you try to make everything airtight, the more space you unintentionally create for doubt. Because strong communication doesn't come from covering every angle, it comes from delivering a point that can stand on its own. In high-level environments, this difference becomes even more visible. The individuals who command attention and respect aren't the ones speaking the most, they're the ones who speak with precision and then allow space. Their words land, and the silence that follows creates presence. It gives others time to process, reflect, and assign value to what was said. That silence is not empty, it's strategic. It signals control, composure, and a lack of need for immediate validation. Now compare that to someone who continues speaking. They begin with clarity, but then they add more and more, trying to anticipate every question, eliminate every doubt, and make sure nothing is misunderstood. But the longer they go, the more their message starts to lose focus. Attention drifts, impact weakens, and instead of sounding more certain, they begin to sound less grounded. Not because their ideas are weaker, but because their delivery suggests they don't fully trust those ideas to stand alone. Over time, this creates a subtle shift in how others engage with you. People interrupt more easily, they question more often, they test your position instead of accepting it. And it's not a conscious decision, it's a response to the signals your communication is sending. What started as an effort to be clear quietly turns into a pattern that reduces how seriously you're taken. Now here's where everything begins to shift, because once you become aware of this pattern, you gain something most people never develop: control over how your presence is perceived. And the change doesn't come from forcing yourself to speak less randomly, it comes from needing less. Less validation, less reassurance, less pressure to make sure everything you say is perfectly received. You start with a simple but powerful adjustment. When you make a point, you finish it and you stop. No extra layers, no automatic clarifications. At first, this will feel unnatural. You'll feel the impulse to add one more sentence, to reinforce your idea, to make sure it landed exactly the way you intended. But that impulse is exactly what has been weakening your presence. Then you refine how you respond when challenged. When someone questions you, you answer, but you don't defend. You respond clearly, directly, and then allow space. That pause is where your authority is felt. You also start using silence intentionally. Instead of filling every gap, you let your words settle. That space creates clarity, focus, and control. And in high-performance environments, composure is one of the clearest signals of confidence. At the highest level, this isn't just about communication, it's about identity. The way you speak reflects how you see yourself. And when you constantly reinforce your words, you're not just adding clarity, you're revealing doubt. But the moment you stop needing that reinforcement, something shifts instantly. Your presence becomes calmer, sharper, and far more controlled. People begin to experience you differently, not as someone trying to be understood, but as someone who understands. Your words carry more weight, not because you say more, but because you don't need to. You speak with intention and you stop with certainty, and that restraint becomes your signal. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Let your words land. Let the silence do what most people never allow it to do. Create presence. Because respect isn't built by saying more, it's built by needing less. If this perspective elevated the way you see communication, subscribe for more insights on high-level presence, mindset, and personal growth.